Okay, but did you stop and say, hey, it's me?
No, it's so funny because I hadn't seen them in years. Like, they didn't recognize me. They were like, you are glowing. What's your secret? And I said, honey, I'm healing. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Honey, I'm Healing. I'm one of your co-hosts, Renee.
Hey guys, it's Irina here.
How are you doing today?
We are surviving.
Surviving?
Yeah.
Oh,
Everyone got hit with something, but we're coming out.
you still look so glamorous. I hate you for it.
Like my jaw. We put that
No.
back.
You're one of those people, you know how some people just they just cannot look bad? That is literally you.
That is the sweetest thing. Thank you.
Yeah. So today, actually, let me back up for a second. This is likely going to be a series that Irina and I talk about just because it is something that I've been very well acquainted with in my life, as I'm sure Irina's come in contact with, I'm sure, as well. But without further ado, we will be talking today about narcissism.
Dun dun dun. What's funny is anytime I've ever had to Google narcissism, I always stop and wait, am I a narcissist? No, I do not believe I am. But do you ever rabbit hole so much onto something, especially in the psych world, and then you're like, hold on, is this me? But I think I tend to relate with everything. So
Me too.
that's my first thought.
I'm one of the people that will Google why my stomach hurts and be like, I have toe cancer.
I urgent care today. She's like, honey, you just have a viral infection. I'm like, but my head, are you sure there's not a brain tumor in there? Oh, that was a bad one.
Yeah, I mean,
I've never had this kind of headache. Google said depending on the way you turn your head, I shouldn't laugh about this, but yeah.
hey, you know what? I know that that's actually a very relatable thing. So that's hilarious. I came to know, I believe she's a psych professor or was formerly, but I really came to know her through TikTok, and her name is Dr. Ramani Durvasula. And she has dedicated so much research to narcissism. And I immediately was intrigued by this. As we grow older and we encounter more people, it's so likely that we're going to encounter someone with narcissism. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is just kind of giving a brief overview of it. And a lot of my research is strictly from Dr. Ramani because she's unparalleled. So
Does she have any books?
she does. She has one called It's Not You. To your point, she said if you read through a list of things about narcissism and you're like, am I a narcissist? You're not.
I remember reading that once too.
They lack the empathy and self-awareness.
And accountability.
She even goes on to say that a lot of people that are narcissists, and there are several different kinds, out of all of those, she kind of describes this situation as, hold on, my brain is going way faster than my mouth. Do you ever have that?
Not recently, no.
Oh my gosh, it's like my whole life right now. One thing that I really like that she said is that narcissism exists on a spectrum. So someone can have narcissistic tendencies without actually being a narcissist.
Yeah.
In terms of relatability, I can read something, one of the tendencies that a covert narcissist would have and be like, I've done that. Does that make me a narcissist? Odds are probably not, but depends on who you ask.
I think everybody can relate to a trait here and there. We're only human.
She says that narcissists are created.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as our codependents, it's all about your environment.
Yeah.
Our next session, we're going to break that down a lot more with, you know, what does a childhood of a narcissist look like? What does their parent situation look like? To kind of really understand where it comes from and what it's rooted in. And I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, me too.
So she goes in to say that there are 7 different kinds of narcissists, and she has a whole TikTok series on this. So I'll put that in a link so that you guys can, if you're interested, you can watch it. But there's really a set of core characteristics that a narcissist exudes, and those are being entitled, selfish, having no empathy, everything's about them, and they're really dysregulated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of entitlement, low and variable amounts of empathy, selfishness, egocentricity, self-centeredness, obsessive need for validation and admiration. They have difficulty with closeness and empathy, and relationships are only there to benefit them. There's no other care for any other person or like the other person in the relationship. There is a great need for control, power, and domination. And there's this sense of grandiosity about them that when you're in their presence, you feel like royalty. You feel like you have the experience of a lifetime to just even be near them. And it's because of this alternate reality that they craft and create. And
they can be very charming.
Yes, very, very charming, very cunning, clever, charismatic.
Yeah. Have you met many women with narcissism?
No.
I have, and I feel like sometimes it's more rare to, I don't know, in my opinion, meet women with narcissistic traits.
Science shows that a lot of men are narcissists, like more likely to be narcissists than women are. But I think for the purpose of this conversation going forward, most of our conversation is going to be about grandiose narcissism, which is also known as classical narcissism. It's just like kind of the textbook definition of it, or the textbook case.
They're the loudest, so you can obviously tell, that they are. The other ones are sneaky.
Yeah, covert narcissists. I think of it's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. Because she says covert narcissism in that song. So covert narcissism disguised as altruism. That's the line. They are cold, victimized, sullen. They're very socially anxious, and they like to throw pity parties for themselves. They are the kind of person that is like, I'm so great, but nobody sees it, and that makes me a victim. Malignant narcissists, as Dr. Ramani says, they're the last stop on the train right before psychopathy. They're very, very violent, very dangerous. They are really into conspiracy theories, but only in the sense of, like, they really believe that the government is out to get them, or certain individuals are out to get them, and there's no factual evidence. It's a very wrong conviction. Benign narcissists are on the lower end of the spectrum. They are in relationships described as present, but they don't care. Dr. Ramani likens that to like dying on the vine. They just don't care. They don't pay attention to you. They're generally just like apathetic. If it's not about them, they're not interested. Like I said, I think for the remainder of the time, we're going to talk about grandiose narcissism as our baseline.
I think they can, be very charming, and they can attract like the superficial things, which in the moment may seem fun or exciting and glamorous, but I also think that they can be very good at love bombing and making you feel so special, I think. You see it in the movies, for sure. And they, yeah, like that specifically, I think is what, like, if you're talking about in like a relationship in movies, you see love bombing.
Have you ever been love bombed by somebody?
No. I think if I was, I would literally be like, you're crazy.
It's a wild experience. And it's really hard because you do feel like you're in a movie. And this is me speaking from experience. Like, you do feel like you're in a movie and it gets all wrapped up, and you get swept up in the moment. And later on in that same relationship, when the narcissist becomes cold to you, detached, they got their supply from you already, it leaves the other person in that relationship really wondering, like, did I do something wrong? Like, why isn't this person loving me to the same effect that they did in the beginning of our relationship? But it's narcissists in relationships specifically are really just there to get their supply. And in one of our parts of that we do of this, we're going to really kind of break down what that looks like, specifically through the lens of the relationship between a codependent and a narcissist. So I'm going to try to couch anything that I say on that now, because I already want to go into it.
I've already gotten stuff on, like, for how they're formed, but I think I'll save that for the parent.
So there was a quote on one of the YouTube videos of Dr. Ramani's that I watched, and I don't normally like pay attention to those. I don't read comments unless they're on TikTok, because they're hilarious, and you know, that's half the fun of the video. It's just straight to the comment section. They had said, narcissists kill the innocence of an empath. Once you date a narcissist, you learn that not everyone has pure intentions.
Yeah.
It very much marked a point in my life where I know that I can never go back to seeing people the same way or trusting people the same way. Even once I am in a more healed place.
Ooh, yeah, that does affect, like, how you trust others with your heart again, and with, like, your vulnerability too.
That's something that I'm, like, really coming to terms with.
When I think of narcissistic abuse, I think of gaslighting, to the point to where you feel like you're going crazy, like, to where you both gaslighting to where, like, you both saw the same thing and they can convince you saw something different. And you're like, okay, am I going crazy? But then you believe, you know, oh, maybe they're right, because you trust this person. Typically, anyone who has narcissistic traits is able to influence you. You're typically in a relationship with them. The average stranger, you're like, you're crazy, you know? So obviously, this goes for relationships, yeah. But when they gaslight you to the point to where, like, you're both looking at the same thing, you can be looking at the same thing, and then they'll tell you saw something different, and then you're like, oh my God, am I going crazy? I consider that abuse. Manipulation.
Yeah.
And then control.
How did that show up for you?
I think when you lose yourself, when you forget who you are because someone has manipulated you and made you feel for so certain who you are, but you know you're not, you just lose yourself. You lose your own self-respect. And that's where, you know, worth, for me, I think at the time, it's definitely changed now as far as my definition of where worth comes from. But I think at the time, that's where I felt worthy. Now, I believe everyone's worthy just because we're alive.
I think the hardest pill for me to swallow has been all of the research says and indicates that they will never change. And part of me has tension with that, because I don't like the phrase nobody ever change, like nobody can actually change, or like you are who you are fundamentally. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that tends to be the case in a lot of places, but I think never in that context, in that sentence, is way too, it's like hyperbole in a way. I think it's exaggerated because it's not in every case.
Yeah, it's got to be like something big, a rock bottom scenario, but ironically, you see people with narcissism have rock bottom scenarios, and it's just like exacerbates even more their personality. And
one of the things that these articles were saying when you're recovering from, or kind of deconstructing after this, is to abandon hope.
Absolutely. When you give up that hope, and we're talking not about just hope in general, just to be more clear, hope about wanting a relationship to work out the way you thought it would. When you give up that hope, you make place for self-worth and self-respect too.
When you're pulled back far enough and you can see with clarity, you can't help but be like, wow.
Because I think a lot of times what we thought was hope was really sacrificing ourselves. And that's good. That's good to do, I think, in the general sense of saving humanity and people, but not one person who chooses to stay exactly as they are when you're on the road to growth and someone else isn't. That hope is really self-sacrifice. It's not hope.
I clung to hope because it was easier than coming to terms with the fact that this situation was what it was. I didn't want to have radical acceptance about it. All it did was create a fracture and give him another piece of myself that I'll never get back. And that was, I think that's the hardest part for me to reckon with in all of this.
You would think pain and suffering and vulnerability would make a person like come to their knees and reflect and see exactly who they are. No.
Narcissists, to their core, it's not about self-love. They don't actually love themselves that much. It is a deep-rooted insecurity, just so much self-loathing.
It's the fire. It's the ignition to the fire that's already there.
We will be talking about the relationship between narcissists and their parents and kind of what that looks like in a future episode. So stay tuned and we will see you next week.
Sounds good. See you guys then. Bye.